Welcome back to the show. Joining me this week is co-founder and CEO of Casa, Nick Neuman. I'm really excited to talk to you, Nick, and full disclosure, I am a new customer of Casa and recently partnered with them. I'm super excited to share more information on how you can safely secure your Bitcoin with multi-sig custody and talk about inheritance planning. So Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Natalie. I've been wanting to do a show with you for a while, so I'm really excited to be here.
Well, let's get right into it. Tell us a little bit about Casa, because when it comes to multi-sig custody, I feel like there aren't a lot of solutions out there. So how did Casa start and what makes it so special?
Yeah, so Casa was really one of probably the OG multi-sig company. And so when we created Casa as it is today back in 2018, we were talking to people who owned Bitcoin and just realizing that everything really comes down to the private key. And very many people were feeling just nervous about securing their private key, especially when you're securing larger amounts of Bitcoin. You have to really make sure you don't lose that key, or else you've lost all your money, or you have to make sure it doesn't get stolen, or, stolen through a $5 wrench attack. These kinds of things are real things that Bitcoiners have to think about. And it was just really difficult to do that. We as humans are not meant to be perfect around keeping one thing safe, right? We can barely secure the passwords to our Facebook. How are we going to keep this password to our Bitcoin secure forever? And so we looked into multisig as a way to solve that problem and realized that while multisig was doable in some kind of difficult ways with some of the software that was out there, there was no company that was really making that easy for people. And so we built Casa to use multisig technology to make Bitcoin security easier. And so we've been around since 2018. We are one of the largest providers of self-custody for Bitcoin in the world. We protect billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin today. And all of that comes back to just making it really easy for people to secure multiple private keys to protect their Bitcoin through multi-sig technology, and to do that in a way that just feels simple and safe. And it needs to actually be simple and safe, but the feeling part of it is pretty important. Because when it comes to people's money, they really want to make sure that they feel comfortable with whatever they're doing. And so everything we've built in Casa is really built to impart that feeling to people. And that's really important for us.
Well, I can attest to that. It's a very simple mobile app. We're going to have a how-to video that you can check out so that you can just follow along, follow the steps, and have your hand held while you're putting your Bitcoin into multi-sig custody. So for people that might be listening or watching that are brand new, what is multi-sig, multi-signature custody? How do you describe it simply to people?
Yeah, so most of the time when you think about securing Bitcoin in self-custody, you've got one private key, and that one private key is protecting all of your Bitcoin. You lose that key, you lost the Bitcoin. With multisig, you've got multiple keys protecting one pool of Bitcoin. So it isn't like you have a little bit of Bitcoin on each key. Think of it like you've got a pool of Bitcoin and then you've got a set of keys protecting that. So just like if you have a safety deposit box at the bank, or you imagine like a bank vault, you go to the actual vault, they've got multiple keys that they have to put in and turn at the same time in order to actually access the Bitcoin. And so with multisig on Bitcoin, what you're doing is, let's say you have 3 keys, you need any 2 of those 3 keys to actually spend your money. So with Casa, you've got 1 key on your phone, you've got 1 key on a hardware wallet, and you've got 1 key that's held by Casa. So anytime you go to spend Bitcoin, typically what you're doing is starting in the mobile app, approving a transaction from your phone, and then going to your hardware wallet, plugging that into Casa through your computer, and approving the transaction from the hardware wallet. So that gives you the 2 out of 3 signatures or approvals that you need to move Bitcoin. So let's say that, and in that way, you can move Bitcoin without Casa ever being involved. Let's say you lose your hardware wallet. Normally, if you didn't have your seed phrase, you'd lose all your Bitcoin. But with Casa, you can use that key that's on your phone and the key that's held by Casa to still access your Bitcoin, and then get a new hardware wallet rotated in to the set and still get back to full health and be able to remain very secure with your Bitcoin. And so it gives people the ability to make mistakes without having that lead to catastrophic loss. And one of the things that Jameson says all the time, and Jameson Lopp is my co-founder at Casa, is he always says Casa is all about removing single points of failure. We really want to make sure that you don't have a single mistake that's able to make you lose your money.
CoinStories is proudly brought to you by Bitdeer, a global leader in disruptive technology for Bitcoin mining and AI. As a publicly traded leader, Bitdeer boasts a massive 900 megawatts of operational data center capacity and an additional 1.1 gigawatts under development across 3 continents, positioning Bitdeer as one of the most diversified and power-dense computing companies in the world. Now, Bitdeer is leveraging years of expertise in data center and cloud management into high-performance computing through a recently announced partnership with NVIDIA. Join Bitdeer in reshaping the world of Bitcoin mining. Learn more at bitdeer.com and explore how they are pioneering the future today. Such a great point. You actually took the words out of my mouth, because with Bitcoin, you don't have a single point of failure. It's decentralized. You also want to decentralize the risk with your own self-custody. And before, when I've done multi-sig custody, I did not use my mobile phone. So why did you decide to go in that direction of having an app? And for those who might think, well, I'm worried about this being on my phone, what do you say to them?
Yeah, so what's really nice about Casa is that, yes, one key is on your phone, but that's just one key out of the set that you need to move Bitcoin. And so what we've tried to do as we designed Casa was create a system that is resilient against many different types of problems. So one of the things that you get from a mobile key that you don't get from a hardware wallet key is you can encrypt that mobile key and back it up to the cloud. And so that makes it actually a very resilient key. So now normally in Bitcoin security, everybody's like, don't put your keys in the cloud. That's dangerous, right? That's true if it's the only key protecting your Bitcoin. Because in that scenario, if somebody were to somehow compromise that account, then they can get all of your Bitcoin. But with a key that is just one of a set, it's actually great to be able to encrypt that and back it up to the cloud, because it means it's really hard to lose that key. So if you lose your phone, all you got to do is log into Casa, log into iCloud or Google, your Google account, and boom, your key magically syncs back to the new phone. And so it gives you a level of resilience that is different than a hardware wallet. Now, a hardware wallet is going to give you protection against, it's going to give you protection against compromise of online accounts. So this hardware key is always offline. Somebody would need physical access to this key in order to use it. But it's much easier to lose that key than it is to lose a encrypted and backed up key that's in the cloud. And then the last thing that we say on this point is just, in case people are really worried about the mobile key, especially in the 3-key vault where it's a 2 of 3 multisig, they can always switch that out for a second hardware wallet. And so then, if you really don't want to trust Casa, you can have 2 hardware wallets and a Casa key that are part of that multisig setup.
So I thought that this was really cool that you have that optionality, because when Nick and I were talking last month offline, I was one of those people. I was very worried. I have my tinfoil hat on all the time. I'm worried that there's some backdoor in these devices, and that somehow it's more vulnerable if you access your Bitcoin via your mobile phone. And so if there are other people out there that are a little bit worried about just the security component, I mean, you basically are saying that your phone is more secure than your desktop browser, right?
I think in certain scenarios, it definitely is, because it depends on, what is on your computer and how many extensions you have in the browser and all of that. But a phone, especially like an iPhone, is just a much more controlled environment than a browser. And so you have a better sense for what is running on that phone and what the phone is capable of doing. And you have a better sense for things like using a phone's secure element to segregate really critical key material. And so we think that a phone is more secure than using a browser in order to actually hold keys. Like if you, for example, compare it to holding a key in an extension, in a browser extension,
Mhm.
um, I think a phone is much more secure than holding a key in a browser extension. Now, you might still choose to use a browser extension for things that are much lower risk or like smaller amounts of money because you get some level of convenience from doing that. But it's all in this. It's all in this trade-off that everybody has to be thinking about between security and convenience.
Yeah. Well, I want to dig into that a little bit more because what if people are watching and they say, why would I trust a company with one of my keys? Because essentially that means you know how much Bitcoin I have. And what if something happens at the company, or what if there's a bad actor at the company? What do you say to that?
So one of the great things about Casa is that we hold one key for you. And that one key in all of our multi-sig vaults is not enough to move funds. So even if somebody were to completely compromise Casa and compromise that key, they could not access our clients' funds. And then the second layer to this is actually goes back to um, removing single points of failure. One of the things that we've done is even remove Casa as a single point of failure. So let's say Casa disappeared overnight. No warning, we're just gone. You don't have access to the Casa servers, no access to the Casa key. You can actually take all of the keys that you have, go plug them into another multi-sig wallet, like an open source multi-sig wallet, like a Sparrow or something like that, and sync it all, and boom, you've got your Bitcoin right there. And we call that sovereign recovery. So it's something that where you have the ability as a sovereign individual to still access your Bitcoin, even if Casa is not there to help you. And that's really important because it means it sets us apart from something like an exchange like FTX or Celsius or one of those guys where they went bankrupt and they locked down and all of their users' funds were locked down with them. With Casa, if something were to happen to us, everybody could use a completely different set of software to move their Bitcoin out.
Hmm. Well, what about the privacy element? Because I thought that this was interesting too. Your company doesn't sell Bitcoin or facilitate trading. It is a custody solution, an inheritance planning solution. So if I wanted to sign up and I didn't want you to know who I am or how much Bitcoin I have, what do you offer for that?
Yeah. So one of the things that people worry about is they say, well, Casa knows how much Bitcoin I have. And so if I'm worried about somebody coming knocking or from a government perspective, or I'm worried about a hacker getting in and seeing the database or something like that, I don't think I feel comfortable with from a privacy perspective with using Casa. And the first thing to know is that we have to know your balance in order to show you the balance in the app. That's just how that works, right? And so, how do we give you the ability to protect yourself against some of those problems? Well, because we aren't a financial service company and because we don't facilitate trading or anything like that, you can sign up for Casa without going through KYC. And this is completely within the laws globally where wallet software providers do not have to KYC their customers because we don't have control over your assets. We're not a custodian. We're
Wow.
not facilitating any money transfer. So you can sign up for Casa with a anonymous Proton mail address if you want to, and
Wow.
then you would never know that it was you using Casa. And so there's really no way to tie the balance as a line item in the database that you see in the app to your identity as a person. I
I
think
thought
this
that
is a
this was
really,
this is a huge selling point. I really
yeah,
think so.
yeah, I think it's a really compelling thing for people who are worried about this. And we've got clients who, because we part of our service is that we'll actually get on a call with our premium clients and our private client members and help you set everything up. Right? We're going to go through a little bit of that later in the tutorial that we're doing. Some of our clients will never show up on camera for that. They'll be there. They'll just be called in from their phone, but they don't want us to even see their face. And that's
Mhm.
totally fine with us. Like if you want to remain that private, that's totally fine. Other people say, no, I actually want you know who I am. I want you to know my family, because then you can be there and actually get to know us as our advisor and help us. And so
Mm.
we serve this really wide range of desires and people around the privacy aspect, and we like to be very flexible with that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Once I learned that, I found that to be fascinating because there are a lot of questions and controversies around KYC. And this is literally non KYC within the boundaries of regulation and law,
Right.
whereas a lot of other companies are kind of operating in the shadows. I find that to be awesome. Okay. So, anything else you want people to know about the company? Because one thing that I really respect is both you and Jameson, you're really passionate about the technical side, and you do make the user experience really simple, really clean. Whereas sometimes these technical aspects of Bitcoin can be very intimidating, especially if you're just starting out. You're worried you're gonna somehow lose the Bitcoin. So what do you want people to know?
We put basically half our effort goes into making sure that the product is as secure as possible, and the other half of our effort goes into making sure that it's as easy as possible. And so we've built things that over the years that address all of the major problems that you might have when you are self-custodying your Bitcoin. So we've talked about just the general kind of loss aspect and protecting against loss, protecting against theft or $5 wrench attacks. What we haven't talked about is protecting against the problem of what happens if you die.
Mhm.
So this is a big problem for people when they are self-custodying Bitcoin, because you have to make sure that your family members or whoever is your next of kin can actually access that Bitcoin, or else it can just be lost forever. And what we realized was that multisig actually enables you to do this in a safer way, because without multisig you're in a scenario where you've got to give access to your one key to a family member, and that opens up a security risk where now
Mhm.
they are suddenly an attack vector for the Bitcoin that you're holding, because
Mhm.
they know the location of, or they know the actual key. With multisig and the way that we've built it with Casa, you can actually set things up so that your family members are not an attack vector before you pass away, but they can still access the assets after you pass away. And we do this by sharing just enough key material with them that when combined with the Casa key after you pass away, your family members can access your funds. And so this is something that we released this earlier this year, and we really built this to make it comfortable for the family members to use, not just the original owner of the Bitcoin, but their family, who's often less technical and less familiar with using keys and all of that. And so we've built it in a way that all your family member has to do is scan a QR code on your phone to get things set up at the basic 3-key multi-sig security level, and it takes 3 minutes, literally. Like I set this up with my wife, who is a little bit less technical, and she, we were kind of thinking, she was thinking it's going to take some time, it's going to be kind of a pain. We were done in 3 minutes, and I was like, yeah, we did a good job building this product. I'm proud of this product that we built, because it's so simple, even for the people who aren't as familiar with Bitcoin.
It's time for a quick break to hear these messages from my partners who make this podcast possible. Next up, Speed Bitcoin Lightning Wallet, one of the fastest growing wallets out there. Speed is a secure, low cost way to send or receive Bitcoin instantly. Download Speed using the QR code on the screen or the link in my show notes, and use promo code CoinStories10 to get 5,000 free sats. And finally, the why of Bitcoin is easy to grasp, but the how can be so confusing. The Bitcoin Way is a professional Bitcoin IT and security team offering personalized one-on-one support that guides you through cold storage, setting up nodes, inheritance planning, privacy best practices, and more. Set up your 30-minute free consultation today. All right, back to the show. Yeah, I'm really excited for people to see this, and go into the show notes, the show description. You'll find the how-to for signing up with Casa, setting up multisig, as well as the inheritance planning tool. Because one cool feature is, let's say you offer that to a family member or a friend. and they try to access it in a way that's maybe nefarious, you can literally lock them out. You'll get an alert and
Yep.
you say, no way. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So part of the security model is that after the original account owner passes away, the person that they designated as a recipient goes into their Casa account and says, I'm requesting access to this vault. And that starts a 6-month timer. So we don't give that access right away because that's part of reducing that attack vector from a security perspective. So they go in, they request access to the vault. It starts a 6-month timer and it sends a notification to the account owner that's saying, hey, access was requested to this vault. You can go in then as the account owner and reject that access at any point during that 6-month period. And we're bothering you the whole time. We're sending you a notification every month, like saying basically like, hey, are you actually dead? If not, please go in here and cancel this thing. And so then you can go in and revoke it if it was a mistake or if there's something nefarious going on. And if there isn't, then after the 6 months, the person gets access to the assets, they get access to the Casa key, and they can get some help from us with actually moving the Bitcoin. And they can either put it into a new Casa account that is fully healthy that they've set up for themselves, or they can move it to an exchange if they're selling it as part of the estate liquidation process or however the plan works out.
Yeah, and make sure to consult an attorney. I know that sometimes people are worried about that, and you have to account for the tax implications,
Right.
and so definitely consult your financial planners and estate attorneys for that. But okay, before we start to wrap up, I wanted to ask you: there are people out there who are maybe newer and they're used to just their traditional brokerage accounts, and now the ETFs are available, and so it's convenient, right? Going back to your earlier point, it's just convenient to do it the old fiat way. Why do you feel that that is the wrong decision? Why do you want people to actually become sovereign and take custody of their Bitcoin?
This is a great question. And I think it is a very timely question for our industry, right? So I think there's really 2 reasons why you would think about doing this. The first is a more practical reason, I would say. Think about why you are investing in Bitcoin. A lot of people are investing in Bitcoin to hedge against inflation and overall inflation risk. But another benefit of investing in Bitcoin is that you're actually hedging against systemic risk. And when I say systemic risk, I'm talking about problems in the legacy financial system that are very widespread problems that tend to be like black swan events, like a great financial crisis type of situation. And a lot of people, when they think about it, are actually investing in Bitcoin for those systemic protection reasons. And that could go even as far as like something as bad as the collapse of the dollar system, right? Mm-hmm. So if you think about that, and that is a reason why you're investing in Bitcoin, because it would protect you against that. If you are holding that Bitcoin in an ETF, which is very tightly tied with that legacy financial system, what is the chance you're going to be able to get that Bitcoin if that entire system is melting down? Very little. So that's the first thing. Think about why you're investing in Bitcoin. And if systemic risk hedging is part of that, then you want to be holding it yourself because you need to have it held outside of that legacy system. So then the second thing is more of a philosophical one. One of the big benefits of Bitcoin is that it is the first time ever that you can actually self-custody digital money or any form of digital data using private keys. And we've had centuries or millennia, basically, of human behavior being built around money needs to be stored with a bank because physical money was too difficult to self-custody practically. It was heavy. It took up a lot of space. You don't want to, there's a reason people make fun of cash under the mattress type of people because it's just so impractical. Mm-hmm. But now, for the first time in human history, it is the easiest it's ever been to self-custody any amount of money in the form of Bitcoin. And so this is a huge advancement just for human freedom and individual control over things that you care about, like your money. And so if you aren't taking advantage of that, are you really missing this entire part of the Bitcoin movement that is so exciting about Bitcoin? I think it's an under talked about aspect compared to the inflation resistance side of it. It's under talked about that you have this level of freedom through self custody of Bitcoin that we've never had before in human history, and it's so easy compared to at any other point. And so that's something that that's part of the reason why we built Casa. That's what we actually get excited about at Casa. And that's, I think, something that people should really think hard about when they're trying to evaluate, do I want to invest in this through a vehicle like the ETF, or do I want to actually own my own money?
It's so true, and such a powerful point. So many people take for granted that something like a bank run can still happen today, and you won't be able to access your funds, and
Right.
or in a at the drop of a hat your savings is inflated by 50%. Like some people in nations literally wake up and their savings have been devalued because they printed so much money or they devalued the currency. So never take that for granted, because Bitcoin can't be confiscated, can't be seized. You can take it anywhere. It does offer you that transactional freedom that is so core to our human rights. Well, I usually start with this question, but I'm going to end with it. Can you just tell us more about you, why you're so passionate about this, and a little of your background that led you to Casa?
Yeah. So I started my career in finance actually as a investment banker. So I always say I'm a recovering investment banker, and that'll be for the rest of my life. I learned a lot of great things, would never do it again. So the first couple of years I worked in finance, and I would say that kind of gave me a little bit of this like banking and money background, right? And then I really wanted to start doing things with startups. The entrepreneurship was really attractive to me from just a level of responsibility, control, and influence that you can have in such a small team, right? And early on in your career, it's just all about like, can you just get after it and do the thing? Versus in kind of the finance world, it's like you got to wait your turn, you got to make the presentations and the analysis for the partners and somebody else to make the decisions. Whereas in the startup world, you make the decisions, and yeah, maybe you don't know what you're doing right away, but you figure it out. So I moved into the tech startup ecosystem and was at a travel tech startup as a product manager for a couple of years, and then really started getting interested in Bitcoin end of 2016, early 2017, and finally was like, I got to do something about this as 2017 and 2018 happened, and the bull market, a
Mhm.
number go up really drives a lot of interest for people, right? So I participated in a hackathon actually in 2018 and built something very similar to Casa. And
Wow.
we ended up winning that hackathon. And so I quit the company that I was at, and I was going to start a company around this. At the same time, the previous CEO of Casa called me up and said, hey, uh, we're building something very similar. Jameson Lopp just joined the team. You should come join us and be our head of product. And so I was like, well,
Wow.
they got Jameson. That's an unfair advantage. So I joined as head of product and was head of product for like the first year and a half of Casa's life, basically from early 2018 through the end of 2019. And then at the end of 2019, the previous CEO decided to step down. There were some family health issues going on, and I'd kind of been the number two. And so he asked me to take over as CEO. And that was crazy because I had no idea how to be a CEO. But luckily, and we were in the depths of a bear market, right? Luckily, I had a good support system around us. Our team was amazing. Our investors were amazing. And I was able to grow very quickly into the CEO role through 2020. And then, for the last 4 years, we've just been continuing to build the business into what it is today, which has been one of the greatest things I've been able to be a part of. And so, as far as that's kind of my journey. And then from the why am I doing it, it really goes back to what I was saying earlier. We think private keys are a technology that really lets people completely change how they interact with the data that's most important to them in their life. And that starts with their money, with their Bitcoin. And so
Mm-hmm.
we want to build software and products that help people do that and take back control in their life of what matters most to them. And that's why Casa exists and why I'm doing this.
That's awesome. Well, Nick, you Casa pilled me. I'm excited to be a customer. Join me, guys. Go to the link in the show notes. It's also on the screen if you're watching this. And make sure to check out our how-to videos. It's super simple. That's what's so great. So thanks so much, Nick. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie. This has been great.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Coin Stories. This show is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Nothing should constitute as official investment advice, and you should always do your own research. My inbox is open. If you want to share feedback or guest suggestions, just reach out at natalie@talkingbitcoin.com. Make sure you're subscribed to the show and check out my free newsletter, nataliebrunel.substack.com. I'll see you next time.